For the Utah Jazz recent first-round pick Donovan Mitchell, I would say the skill set that immediately stood out for him was his defense. And even at 6'3", he shows an ability as well as an effort level to really disrupt NBA players. I mean, it started in Summer League, but I would say it has translated to the NBA pretty well. And if we look at some numbers, Mitchell's personal defensive rating with the Jazz is 97.9, and when Mitchell is not in the game, the Jazz defensive rating actually jumps up to nearly 103. So he has been able to make that impact immediately on that side of the floor. He's a strong guy who kind of reminds me of Avery Bradley, just given that he's only 6'3", but I would say that he is the stronger of those two players, and as a result, I could see him eventually being someone who could defend some NBA wings. But if anything, he's going to be a lockdown defender on point guards and a majority of shooting guards, and if not lockdown, at least very good. But offensively, Mitchell seems to have something to him as a ball handler. The Jazz have used him as a pick-and-roll player a lot of the time, able to use a screen and roll and get to the basket and actually have some good things happen. He's shooting 56% at the rim, which is a statistic that you would be happy with if he was in his first season, his 5th season, or his 10th season. So if he can maintain that throughout his NBA career, then he can be very reliable attacking the rim. And given Mitchell's strength as well as willingness to really attack the basket, I see him just being kind of fearless, which is good because some of the Utah players, there's Rodney Hood, whose injuries has left his confidence attacking the rim to be kind of so-so, and then there's Ricky Rubio, who's not a natural shooter or attacker. So Mitchell's going to be asked to do this stuff, and I don't think he really has a problem with it. I would also like to think that his free throws could be a real thing as his career goes along, because if you're willing to attack inside and not be bad at it, then naturally you have to assume you're going to draw contact and you're going to be able to get to the line. So hopefully that can be a real offensive weapon for him. And then the last thing would be his three-point shooting. While his percentages are not that good on the season right now, he's shooting not too far above 30% from three. He has taken quite a few, and outside of one really bad game where he missed like 7 or 8 three-pointers, I would like to think that he's made enough threes and his form has looked good enough early on in this year to where he can grow into a reliable outside shooter, which I think overall would allow him to be a really quality offensive player, combined with his ability to attack inside and hopefully draw contact. And then you combine all that with what he can do on defense, and I think Mitchell could grow into a really quality two-way player. Now, do I think he can be a star? I don't know, because there are certain areas offensively where he does struggle, which is basically everywhere in between. Mid-range, floaters, his percentages are pretty ugly on those type of shots. He is shooting about 35% from floater range and maybe around 22 or 23% from mid-range jumper areas, so he's going to have to work on those quite a bit. And of course, it's a small sample size early in the season, so maybe he can grow to be pretty okay at those things. But just based on the early season stuff, I don't know if he'll ever be a big-time scorer, because if all you have is three-pointers and finishing at the rim, then you better be elite when it comes to getting fouled, kind of like James Harden. And while I think Mitchell can be good at getting to the free throw line, I don't know if he'll get to a point of 7 to 10 a game or so. But now we can talk about his playmaking a bit. He's averaging about 2 assists on the season, also about the same amount of turnovers. But I would like to think that a guy who can dribble the ball like he can and command, hopefully, attention from the defense if he can keep this up, would be able to make some plays for other guys. Not expecting him to be able to get to 5 or 6 assists a game. Well, maybe about 5, I think that could be reasonable given what he's done so far. But I wouldn't expect him to be a big-time playmaker, but that's okay. You don't have to be, as long as you're someone who can make the defense pay for providing some extra help on you. That can be a good sign. If we look at the team around him, depending on how good his jump shot is, Mitchell's that is, then he could be able to play with Ricky Rubio pretty effectively. But if Mitchell's three-point shot dips down, then that could be some spacing issues. Also, you look at guys like Derek Favors, and I think Rudy Gobert is similar since they're both kind of the same when it comes to offense, even if Favors likes his mid-rangers a little bit more. I mean, if Mitchell's playmaking is legit, then he can play off of guys like that. He can make plays for big dudes. So I do like Donovan Mitchell quite a bit. I think if we fast forwarded a couple of seasons, I could picture an average of him being like 16, 17 points a game, quality three-point shooter, a guy who can play in the pick and roll and attack the rim, get to the free throw line, make plays for himself as well as other guys, and then also be a really good defensive player. So overall, I think Utah definitely nailed it with Donovan Mitchell. I guess the fear would be if he's a worse offensive player than I think he could be, but I think he'll be alright.